review and a sew along as part of Hot Girl Summers for New Look? Well, I'm not going to keep you waiting. We're going to be talking about New Look 6769. So if that's some content you would like to see, please continue to watch.
Yeah, he got a nice room. You won't have it long. He left a call for 7 a.m.
Bad girls make him say wow. Bad girls make him say wow. Bad girls make him say wow.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's your girl Rochelle from Rochelle.Handmade.Designs, and in this video I'm going to be sharing with you guys, of course, the one and only New Look 6769. I'm going to be sharing a pattern review as well as a sew along for this pattern. But if you are new to the channel, welcome. Hello, Ciao, Guten, Aloha, Hola, Konnichiwa, Gwaan, Sabonani, Shalom, Bonjour, Terve. If you're returning, you guys know what to do. Quick snacks, something to drink. Grab the notebooks because you may need them. You might, okay? So without further ado, to keep this video short, sweet, and to the point, give you all the deets and the news that you can use on this video, let's go ahead and get into it. All right, so first I'm gonna do a quick pattern review because a lot of this you guys will see on the sew along. Now I will tell you that the sew along is about 2 hours, okay? Well, start to finish, I'm gonna say that you should be able to get this done in every bit of about 1.5 hours to 2 hours, because you know your girl provides complete detailed sew alongs, all right? So you wouldn't have any hassles with fly front zippers or anything like that, all right? So let's first start off with the pattern description. Now I'm gonna give my own, only because New Look doesn't really provide you with a whole complete pattern description. So this is an easy to sew wide leg style pant. So you have a waistband in the front. So the waistband is more of like a yoke front and a yoke back piece that you're going to be putting together to form the waistband. You also will have to do 2 buttonholes and install 2 buttons. You will have pockets, and there is a fly front zipper. Now, I will talk about this right now instead of, later on. It's also in the sew along that on the back of the pattern envelope, it never tells you to pick up a zipper, okay? It doesn't tell you to pick up an exposed zipper or a invisible zipper, but you will need at least a 9-inch exposed zipper. Now, me personally, I like to keep the zipper pull out of my way, so my zipper is like a 22-inch zipper that I cut off at the end. But let me tell you a little secret. 22-inch zippers are cheaper than getting anywhere from 9 to 14-inch zippers. Go to Joann's and tell me if I'm correct, all right? You could get a 22-inch zipper for about $3.99, I believe. And it's more if you, or $2.99, I believe is what I got my zipper for. But it's more if you get the ones on the lower scale, like the 7, between the 7 and the 9s, it's like $3.99. And then I believe from 14 to 16 or 14 to 18, it will cost you like $3.49 or something like that. I just want to give you that tip. That's why I buy longer zippers, because it is cheaper. All right, let's talk about the sewing skill level. So in terms of the sewing skill level, this pattern is rated as easy. Do I feel this pattern is easy? To be honest, reading the instructions, no. But with my sew along, yes, okay? Now, anytime there's a fly front zipper that's attached to any type of pattern, I don't see this as a easy to sew, but I will say this is a beginner friendly pattern, or a confident beginner pattern, that if you are confident about doing fly front zippers, installing invisible zippers, or even exposed zippers, you can tackle this pattern. Now, I want to say another thing, because your girl's going to walk you all the way through the details. So even if you are a beginner, the first thing I want you to do is head over to my video on Let's Size It Up, where I talk about how to size up your pattern for any pant pattern. Go to that video first, do all the measurements that you need, and then come back to this video. After you hear this pattern review, come back to this video so you could do the sew along. And the reason why I say that is because in this video, I'm not going to show you how to size up a pattern. We're just going to get to the sew along. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the notions used. So I kind of already talked about this, but in terms of the notions used, you're going to need a all-purpose or exposed zipper. I'm going to say at least 12 inches, but you could get 9 inches for that. And you're going to need at least 2 1-inch buttons. Now my buttons are 7/8, and I just used what was in my stash, which was like these nice glittery style buttons, but you can use whatever buttons that you want. All right, let's talk about the fabric used. So in terms of the fabric used, I just used some bright blue fabric from my stash, okay? It is from Joann's, and it's just 100% cotton from my stash for the fabric used. Let's talk about pattern pieces. So in terms of the pattern pieces, there's only 6 pattern pieces. So you have the front, well, there's 6 pattern pieces if you are doing view A, but I did view B, so there's only 5 pattern pieces. So you have the front, the back, the pocket, the yoke front, and the yoke back. It comes together super, super quick. All right. So let's talk about pattern sizing. So in terms of pattern sizing, this pattern only comes in 1 pattern envelope, size 10 to 22. The size that I cut was a size 22. Now, one thing I will mention is I cut the 22 because of my hips. Okay. Now, when it came to time for the yoke, I pretty much kind of sized it all the way down to like a 18.5 to a 20. So I kind of graded right there because I knew it would have been too big in the waist if I did not take any of that excess out. All right. Because I always have to size up for my hips because like I mentioned, my hips is a 46.5. But in terms of like ease and everything, I always go for like a 48.5 to 49, 2 to 2.5 inches of ease for sitting down and all of that stuff. So that's just what I prefer, but by all means do whatever, you know, suit your fancy. If you want to do 3 inches for ease and sitting down so you don't break a seam, by all means do so. All right. Let's talk about the size that I cut. Well, I did kind of already tell you the size that I cut. I cut a size 22 for this pattern. Any modifications? So in terms of modifications, I didn't make any modifications to this pattern simply because it's good sewing it straight out the package. You don't need any modifications for this pattern. Now, if I decide to do this again, I would make some modifications. All right. Did it look like the photos or the drawing on the pattern envelope? Absolutely. The only difference is I did not crease my pants because we're in 2024. Where do we wear creases at? I'm just saying, okay? I did that for years in the military. I don't need to do that now, but do I know how to crease my clothes? Absolutely. But we did press these to the gods because I'm just going to say if you're using linen or any type of broadcloth, 100% cotton, it tends to kind of look wrinkled. So I did press these with some starch before going outside to take photos. All right. Are the instructions easy to follow? Yes and no. Just to be 100% honest. It is easy to follow all the way up until you get to the zipper installation. Now, here's the thing. So for the zipper installation, I was going to do it exactly like the instructions. But after that, I figured that you guys wasn't going to understand what the heck I was talking about. So I went back to the video that I did live, Simplicity 9892, and installed it the same way because one, is super easy to do that way instead of what they wanted you to do in the instructions, okay? So just follow my sew along and you will have some nice wide leg pants that you can make several times with 5 pattern pieces or less and less than 2 hours, okay? Let's talk about likes and dislikes. So I love these pants, okay? Let me show you them, okay? Of course, you guys are not going to be able to see it if I still had them on, so that's why I went ahead and took them off. But look at these, okay? Like, yes. Now, I did use kind of like a glittery style button, and it already had like a blue shimmer in it, just like this. So I mean, this was from my stash. I'm not going to even lie. It was from my stash. So you're going to add a button here and you're going to add a button to the back right here as well. And then you're going to also create 2 buttonholes. But outside of that, it's really nothing to these pants outside of the fly front. It's probably what is making everyone get hung up about doing pants or whatever. But I like doing fly front zippers. It's not a problem to me whatsoever. So that is the like. The dislike is just the way that they have you do the fly front. I didn't like that. But outside of that, there's really no dislikes for this pattern outside of doing the way that they want you to do for the fly front zipper. All right, let's talk about first time experiences. Did I have any first time experience? No, not at all. I have done many pants. And in the last week and a half, 2 weeks, I literally have sewn over 4 pairs of pants. And you guys will be seeing those on the channel coming up soon. Okay, for the month of June, you guys will be seeing a lot in terms of pants and sew-alongs and stuff like that. I'm just, you know, editing takes some time, just to be 100% honest with you. Would I sew this pattern again? Absolutely. Okay, this pattern, good. Okay, would I recommend this pattern to other? Absolutely. I would definitely recommend this pattern to other, which is why I did the sew along. So basically I'm taking the ease out of you thinking about it and just going for it. Okay, so once again, it's New Look 6769. And my pattern rating for this pattern, I'm going to give this pattern a 5 out of 5. And the reason why I'm giving it a 5 out of 5 is because for the crotch curve, I did not have to do any modifications for the crotch curve. I did not have to do any modifications for the crotch depth, which if you go to the video, size it up, you know exactly what I'm talking about. In terms of the yoke front and back, there was no need to do any sizing up. Everything, even the finished garment measurements on the pattern is spot on. Okay, I did, after measuring the pieces, it was spot on, which normally does not happen. Most of the time for any finished garment measurements on the pattern, it's off. So I was super duper, you know, excited that it matched what it says, you know. From my measurements to the finished garment measurement, it was the exact same measurements that I got. All right, so I'm gonna stamp this pattern a 5 out of 5 for New Look 6769. So yeah, that's it in terms of the pattern review. So now that I did the pattern review for a New Look 6769, let's go ahead and get you right on over to the sew along. But I'll also put concession stands and breaks so you can go ahead and get you a refill while you watch the sew along. All right, so let's go ahead and get right on over to the sew along. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about this sew along. This is day number 2, okay? So day number 2, I am filming a sew along for New Look 6769 as part of, you know, New Look for June, okay? So I figured, you know, like no one has done this pattern. I just wanted to test it out, see what it's about. So yeah, this is what I'm providing a sew along for right now. Now, I did not pick this up during the 99-cent sale at Hobby Lobby. I picked this up when it dropped for fall 2023. I actually cut this pattern on the 23rd of May. So today is the 25th. So this is actually day number 2 because I cut all the patterns between the 23rd and the 24th, okay? But this is New Look 6769. So let's go ahead and talk about the pattern pieces that you will need as well as the instructions. So let's go ahead and do it now. All right, so go ahead and look, let's pull out the instructions. So this pattern is only 5 pattern pieces, okay? Because I am doing view B. So basically I'm not doing the flap on my pants. I don't want that, even though I'm just making it bright blue, solid color, but I do not want the flap. So it's only going to be 5 pattern piece. You have the front, the back, the pocket, the yoke back, and the yoke front for this. So it's a really, hopefully quick sew outside of the fly front zipper, which you guys know I have showed you how to do a fly front zipper, but I'm going to show you a different method today. All right. So those are the pattern pieces you're going to need. In terms of cutting, I am cutting a size 22 for my pattern. So I'm following this guideline. I already cut out all my pieces. I transferred all my notches and my dots so I could get started. In terms of lining, that's just basically your pocket bag. So make sure you cut 4 there. You can cut 2 of fabric and 2 of lining, or you could cut all 4 in the same manner in the same fabric. In terms of seam allowance, we are going to be using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance unless otherwise stated that I say in this video. If you have not read the glossary, please make sure you read the glossary. What is E-stitching, edge stitching, slip stitch, top stitch, or understitch? You need to read that glossary there. All right, so those are all the things that we're going to do. We're going to be putting the front, the back together, pockets. We're going to be inserting a fly front zipper and the yoke, which will serve as your waistband. So that's all the things we're going to do. Like I mentioned, it should be a relatively quick sew. So let's go ahead and talk about the pattern pieces and get started. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the pattern pieces you will need in order to construct these pants. Now, I am not going to be doing the flap, but if you are planning on doing view A or view B, you can follow the instructions in order to do the flap. But if you are doing view A, you're going to need pattern piece number 2, the flaps, where you're going to be cutting out 2 of fabric, 2 of lining, and 2 of interfacing. All right, but I'm not going to be using this piece. So the first pattern piece, if you are doing view B like I am doing, is pattern piece number 3, which is the back. You need to cut 2 of fabric. Next pattern piece is pattern piece number 1, your front. You need to cut 2 of fabric. Make sure you transfer your stitching line on the right front side when wearing it. I showed you this when we did the Simplicity 9892, which I did that on live. I also showed you how to do it when I did the Let's Size It Up. I showed you how to transfer all your dots and all that good stuff. So make sure this is going to be a little different because the fly front, the underlap, and the fly facing is already attached, which is a different method than what I showed you already. So I'm going to be showing you this method on how to put a fly front zipper on when it serves like this. When it's shown like this, how to put that on. All right, so make sure you cut and transfer everything you have already seen in this pattern. So this is pattern piece number 1. Next pattern piece is pattern piece number 4, which is the pocket. You need to cut 2 of fabric and 2 of lining, or you could cut 4 of the same fabric. Next pattern piece is pattern piece number 5, your yoke back. You need to cut 4 of fabric and interface 2 of those. And the last pattern piece is pattern piece number 6, your yoke front. You need to cut 4 of fabric and interface 2. Once again, transfer all your dots and make sure you transfer your buttonhole marking. All right, so those are all the pattern pieces that you will need in order to sew up these nice flared wide leg pants. So let's go ahead and get started because this pattern is rated as easy. So let's go ahead and move the pattern pieces out the way and grab pattern piece number 1 now. All right, so one thing before you grab pattern piece number 1 so we could get started sewing, I'm gonna go ahead and put it up on the screen, but grab the back of your pattern. And one thing I noticed when I was reading all the instructions several times before getting started, which is one of the things that I tell you guys to do all the time. If you look at the notions, it says that you're gonna need 3 1-inch buttons. However, on the instructions, it tells you that we're going to be doing a zipper and you know, sewing up the sides, right? Well, it never tells you that you're going to need a zipper in order to do the fly front. So one thing I want to mention is I would definitely say to grab you anywhere from a 9 to 12-inch zipper in order to do the fly front. And it needs to be an all-purpose exposed zipper. Do not grab an invisible zipper. All right, so let's go ahead. I'm gonna go ahead and move this pattern out of the way. Grab pattern piece number 1 so we could go ahead and get started, okay? So let's go ahead and do that now. All right, so go ahead and grab pattern piece number 1, which are your front pattern pieces. You should have went ahead and marked your dots, which will be for your pockets. If you want pockets, it's optional for sure. You should have went ahead and marked the dot right here, which will be for your fly, okay? And this will be your underlap, what seems to be your underlap, which that marking right here, okay? So the first thing you're gonna do is ease stitch. Now, ease stitch is done at about a 1/2 inch seam allowance. You're going to do from the side all the way to the notch using about a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and you're gonna be using the longest stitch on your machine. Now, normally I would literally stay stitch, but according to the pattern, it says to ease stitch, so that's what I did. So go ahead and ease stitch the top of your pants from the side seam to that notch now. All right, so I already did it. So the next thing we're gonna do, I'm gonna go ahead and start prepping my area for the zipper, okay? Now, one thing I am going to do for mine, I'm gonna go ahead and after sewing this, I'm gonna apply a little bit of interfacing right here to both sides of the fly and the underlap. So I'm just gonna put some interfacing right in here. You're gonna see it once I put it on there, but I haven't done it yet, all right? So I'm gonna apply that here in a second, right after I stitch right sides together, the front, okay? So I'm just gonna take right sides together, put this one on top of the other one. I'm gonna grab my pins. All right, so now that I have my front right sides together, now you have a notch. So make sure you match up that notch right here and pin, okay? And you should have a dot right here. Make sure you match up the two dots, and I'm going to pin. Now what you're going to do is you're gonna sew from this dot right here to the notch. So you're gonna back stitch at the beginning and at the end. Go ahead and do that now, but before you do that, I would advise you to put some stabilize that area by applying some interfacing just right there at the where the fly and the underlap would be if you was actually applying it. And then also go ahead and search the fly area and the crotch area, okay? So go ahead and do that now, and then sew from the dot to the notch now. Go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I have from the dot all the way sewn to that notch, now I left from the dot up unsewn. Now in the instructions, it will tell you to baste all the way up, and then you're going to install it that way. I don't like that way, so I'm not going to install my zipper that way. Do I know how to do it that way? Yes, I do, but I prefer to do it this way instead. All right, so what I'm gonna do is grab my zipper. This is the right side of my zipper with the zipper pull. You're going to lay that down. Now I'm gonna keep my zipper pull out of the way. So my zipper is going to be all the way up to where it's out of my way. Now I'm gonna grab my pins and I'm going to pin on the right side of the zipper. So I'm just gonna pin this side. Now, if you watched my video, well, first of all, let me line this. I'm gonna line the zipper up with this line that you should have transferred, and I'm gonna pin on the right side. Now, what I'm saying is if you watched my video for the low-waisted pants, how I showed you how to do a fly, I'm doing it the exact same way as that video. So I'm gonna pretty much kind of walk you through it, but it's pretty much the same thing. Now what I'm gonna do is go to the sewing machine and I'm gonna just go ahead and baste that on. Go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I have the zipper basted on, just like so, I have it basted on right here. So when you turn that right side out, to the inside, I'm sorry, when you turn it to the inside, you should have a nice looking overlap, just like this. The next thing you wanna do is take your white pencil and you wanna mark the top where where the right side is gonna meet the left side. So I'm just gonna mark right here. Now, this is where what it's gonna look like. Now, what you wanna do is unzip your zipper, okay? And then you're gonna do like I did in the video for the low-rise pants, Simplicity 9892. I'll go ahead and pop it up right here, but also put it in the description box below. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take that zipper right here, okay? And you're going to pin this, making sure that you have this lined up with the top, just like this. And you're gonna pin this side just like this, okay? So make sure you have this portion pinned, lined up to the top, just like this. Let me bring it in so you can see. So you're lining that top up with that marking that we created, that white chalk marking. And I'm going to pin, all right? And I'm going to pin all the way down this zipper teeth, okay? So you're going to pin all the way down to that dot. You should have a dot, so you're going to be pinning all the way down to the dot. So go ahead and pin the zipper teeth to the left fly extension now. All right, so now that I have it pinned using 3/8 seam allowance and a regular length stitch, we're going to back stitch at the beginning and at the end. Go ahead and sew the zipper onto the left front extension now. All right, so now that I have my fly front zipper completed, I went ahead and stitched that extension line right here. So go ahead and move your front out of the way, grab your back because we're pretty much done with the front. And the first thing you need to do is go ahead and make your darts in the back. I have already done that. Once you do that, you're going to press it to the center back, which is this area where it's going to be curved. You're going to press it there instead of the side seams. All right, so now what you're going to do is you're going to attach front to back at the inseam. That's the inner portion of your seam. Now, one thing I'm going to say is I have already serged the curve portion, but you really do not have to. But what you want to do is with right sides together, you're going to pin the inseam, okay? So what you're going to do, let me go ahead and just move one leg out of the way and pin the other. All right, so now don't forget you have a notch right here at the inseam. You're going to pin the notch and then you're going to pin all the way down the inseam of your pant. All right, you're going to do that on both pant legs. So go ahead and pin the inseam of your pants now. All right, so now that you have the inseam pin using 5/8 seam allowance and a regular length stitch, back stitch at the beginning and at the end. Once you do that, finish off your seam allowance and do the other pant leg the same way. Go ahead and sew your inseam together now. All right, so now that I have the inseam sewn, I went ahead and finished them off. The next thing we're gonna do is the crotch seam. So what you wanna do is with right sides together, this is what it's going to look like. You want to pin your crotch seams together. Make sure the seam allowance is turned the same direction. Now, me personally, I like to have my seam allowance down towards the pants instead of up towards the back, okay? You also have a notch, so make sure you pin at that notch right here. And then you're going to pin up the you have a double notch right there, so make sure you pin there. I'm going to pin there, and then you're going to just pin up the crotch seam. So go ahead and pin up the crotch seams now. All right, so now that I have it pinned, now I did flip it over so my zipper could be on the right. What I'm going to do is make sure that I pin this way. Make sure that you do not have any fabric bunching up underneath as well. And what I like to do is I like to make sure my seams, my inseam and my crotch seam is, the seam allowance is to the back instead of to the front. So I'm switching that over to this side for sure. And then I have it pinned all the way up to that notch. All right, so what you're gonna do is you're gonna start using 5/8 seam allowance. I'm gonna back stitch at the back stitch at the beginning, sew all the way down to that notch where you stop sewing, and then back stitch at that knot. After I do that, I'm gonna actually go in again just to secure that curve piece, because what you don't want to do is you're bending down and everything and then you have some stitching that pops. Even though I have my seam serged, I'm going to do the first stitch at 5/8 seam allowance, and then just along the curve, like not all the way around, but just kind of like between here and the notch, just about this much. I don't know what the spacing would be. I would say like between, I'm going to say 9 inches. So between my 5 line right here and my 14 line right here, which is 9 inches, So I'm just gonna go about a half of an inch, 9 inches between here and here, all right? And do like a second stitch so the first one at 5/8, the second one at a half an inch, just to secure those stitches in place in between my crotch, all right? So go ahead and do that. Now, after we do that, we're gonna install our pockets. Now, I'm not gonna show you on camera how to install pockets on the front and back seams, which is pattern piece number 4. We have done pockets on this channel so many times. So go ahead and install your pockets after you sew your crotch seam, and then meet me back here to start working on the yoke, which is pattern piece number 5. So go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I have the inseams done, just to recap, inseams done, the inseams done, the crotch seams done, the side seam is done, and the pockets are done, okay? So I did all of that off camera, like I said, to do the pockets off camera because we have done that so many times. So I tried them on and they fit like a glove, okay? Loving it. So I'm gonna go ahead and move this off to the side and grab pattern piece number 5. All right, so I have pattern piece number 5 and 6. So pattern piece number 5, 2 of them are not interfaced. The other 2 are interfaced. So I'm gonna just lay them out like this. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna grab pattern piece number 5, the uninterfaced ones, all right? So the ones with interfacing right here are used as facing pieces instead of the main pieces, okay? So take pattern piece number 5 and you have double notches right here at the side. So you want to pin at the double notches and pin all the way across. So go ahead and pin all the way across that center back of the yoke back. Now this is the yoke back, okay? Now using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, back stitch at the beginning and at the end. Go ahead and sew across the seams and press them open now. All right, so now that I have the center back of the yoke back, which is weird, I have them stitched together at the center back. Now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna flip it over and I'm gonna take one of my yoke front, and with right sides together, we're going to pin the yoke front. Make sure you're not pinning where that buttonhole is. You're pinning at the yoke side seams. I guess you could call it the side seam. So wherever that notch is, okay? So you're just gonna pin at the notch, then pin along the yoke front and back. You pin the yoke front to the yoke back. And then you're gonna do the other side the exact same way, making sure you're not pinning the portion that has the buttonhole, okay? And then you're gonna pin at that notch, pin at the top, and then pin at the bottom. And make sure you do the facing pieces the same way. I'm gonna show you what that looks like. So I'm gonna move this out the way right quick. I'm gonna show you that I have already done my facing piece. And yes, I have number 5 for the center, and then I put number 6 right here, okay? And then what I did was I did a basting stitch at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, trimmed it down to 3/8, and then pressed my seam allowance up. It tells you how to do it in the instructions as well, but that's what you will need to do. Once again, at the very bottom, along the bottom, create a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, a stitching line, 5/8 of an inch stitching line, trim to 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, and then press the seam allowance up on the facing. That's the facing is the yoke front and back that has the interfacing on it, all right? That's considered your facing. Now back to the main fabric right here, using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, back stitch at the beginning and at the end, and sew the side seams now. Go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I have the yoke pieces attached, I'm gonna move this out of the way just real quick. Grab your pants and you're going to attach your yoke to your pants. Now remind you that you have a notch there and you have a notch over here, okay? So that's where your notches are going to match up at. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take the portion, if you look at it like this, the yoke is frowning, okay? So you're gonna take the bottom portion of your yoke And you're going to match up where the notch is. And I'm going to show you how to pin it because you have some ease stitching to make sure that you ease the ease it on, okay? So I'm going to pin there. I'm going to pin at my side seam right here. Make sure that you are pinning at that side seam. I'm going to pin right here. All right. I'm going to flip it over. All right. So now that I have it flipped over, I'm going to pin at the center back. And definitely if you need more pins somewhere, make sure you are pinning where you need to pin at for sure. I'm just going to put a couple of pins right here. Okay. And then I'm going to pin at the other side seam, which is right here. And if you need to put another pin somewhere, you can go ahead and put like a pin right here. I'm going to put a pin right here. And if you need more pins, definitely put pins wherever you need to put them at, okay? And then now what I'm going to do, I'm getting back to the front. And then I'm going to pin at that notch. All right. So pin at that notch. And then I'm going to put pins along the front as well. So go ahead and pin all the way around. If you need to put more pins, go ahead and do so now. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to unzip this zipper portion and I'm going to take that this yoke all the way out to the front. Just like this. And it's going to extend and it's supposed to. So don't be alarmed when you see that, okay? And you're going to do the same thing to the other side. Make sure that it's going to extend a little bit and it's supposed to. So don't be alarmed when it extends a little bit. And just pin. All right, so now that I have the yoke pinned all the way around, I'm going to start in the back like I normally do. And using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, back stitch at the beginning, so all the way to the front, and then back stitch at the front. Once I do that, I'm going to flip it over and then once again, so from the back all the way to the front. Back stitch at the beginning and at the end. All right, so go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I attach the yoke on, now what you're going to do is I press the seam allowance up towards the yoke, okay? So now grab your yoke that's interface, your interface yoke, and basically what you're going to do is pin the yoke facing to the yoke all the way around. So just go ahead and pin the yoke, and you want to make sure that you have both pressed under, okay? And you're going to pin the front sections together too. So don't forget that. Don't skip out on that. And like I mentioned, make sure that both are pressed up, okay? And I'm going to just pin this together just like that. And I'm going to do both sides the same way, okay? So just go ahead and pin your yoke facing to your yoke now, all the way around. All right, so now that I have it pinned pretty much all the way around, I'm getting towards the front, and you're going to do the same thing. You're going to make sure that the bottoms are pressed up, pin at that front, like you see me doing right here. And then I'm going to pin the top portion as well. And I'm going to grab my other pin holder to make sure I have enough pins. All right, so now that I have this pinned all the way around, you guys know what I normally do is start in the back, and that's what I'm going to do. I mean, it's just kind of like what I do, okay? So I'm going to start in the center back using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, back stitch at the beginning, so all the way to the front. And when I get to the front, I'm going to pivot and sew down, okay? Still using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance to sew this front down as well, okay? So I'm gonna make sure that I do that. And then I'm going to flip it over and do the other side the same way. Starting at the back stitch at the beginning, so all the way to the front again, and then stitch down, all right? So go ahead and do that. Make sure you back stitch at the beginning and at the end. And then after you do that, make sure that you want to come all the way in at 5/8 of an inch, all the way to the front, okay? Just where I'm just gonna put a pin right here, like stop right here where you have that front opening. You want to sew that down as well, using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. So for the front, you're gonna sew down and then across to the front, okay? You're gonna back stitch at that front. Do not go past it, okay? You just wanna make sure you have a clean edge at the bottom, the front, and at the top, okay? You're gonna do that on both sides. So go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I have the yoke facing on, what I'm gonna do is I trimmed down half of it, but I'm gonna trim down the other half on camera for you. So make sure that the yoke is pressed down, and do not, if you need to take your scissors, all you want is to trim down the yoke piece, nothing else, okay? And then make sure you trim down the front piece if you need to. So I'm just going to trim down the front piece just like this. And then clip a little bit into that corner, all right? Now I'm going to say grab your point turner, but first let me clean up my table from all the scraps. And then grab your point turner as well. All right, so now that I cleaned up my table and removed my scraps, what you're going to do is you're going to turn your facing right side out. And this is what it's going to be looking like, okay? And clip any loose threads that you may have. Make sure that your seam allowance right here is pressed up towards the yoke, because it's going to look like this. You're going to basically give your yoke a press all the way around to prepare it for slipping in the ditch, okay? So I'm gonna turn the other side out, and then I'm gonna go and give it a good press. All right, so I'm just going to poke this out right here with my fingers first. I like to use my fingers first, and then I'm gonna use my point turner and give it a good poking out. I'm gonna poke the rest of it out with my point turner, being sure not to push too hard because I don't wanna, you know, break any threads or anything, okay? So that's what it looks like so far. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm going to go ahead and press the yoke all the way around to prepare it for slipping in a ditch. So go ahead and press your yoke all the way around so we could pin it and get it to going. All right, so let's go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I have this pinned on the inside, because what I like to do for my waistband, I like to finish, not necessarily finish, but I like to base on the inside where the pins are, and then top stitch on the right side. After I know it's basted and it's in place, then I go over and top stitch all the way around. Now with this one, you want to top stitch the bottom, the front, and the top all the way around, all right? After you do that, it's just a couple of more things you want to do. You want to create your buttonhole. So you're going to create a buttonhole here and a buttonhole here, okay? So one buttonhole here, one buttonhole here where you see that buttonhole mark, and then you're going to put a button right here at this dot, and the other button goes at this dot. Now, one thing I'm going to mention about the buttons is if you don't like hand sewing, you need to hand sew your button on this side, okay? Because you don't want it to poke through right here, okay? So you're just going to sew through one, and honestly, if you want to sew on your button right now, you could sew on your button right now before you attach your waistband if you would like to hand sew it on now so it's not in your way. Same thing for the other side. If you want to go ahead and sew on your button now before completely closing off your waistband, you can do that. And then after doing that, then close up your waistband and stitch your buttonholes in place, all right? After you do that, the only thing left for you to do is go ahead and do your hem. Now, I think the hem is 1 1/4. Let me check the pattern piece because I completely put them away. So, yes, the hem allowance is 1 1/4. So press up 1 1/4 on your pant pattern. Your fabric, and then stitch your hem in place, okay? Now, once you do that, you are all done with your pants, all right? So that is it for this sew along of New Look 6769. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. And if you make these nice, wonderful wide leg pants, please do not forget to tag me on Instagram or here on YouTube at Rochelle.Handmade.Designs. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Until I see you in the next one. Peace. All right, so there you have it. That is the complete pattern review and the sew along for New Look 6769. I hope you enjoyed this pattern review and sew along. And if this video was educational, inspiring, and fun, please do not forget to hit that like button, subscribe button, also smash that notification bell so you are notified every time I upload a new video. Also, if you make these pants, do not forget to tag me in your creations at Rochelle.Handmade.Designs so I can share in my stories as well. Well, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed, and stay tuned because you guys will see a whole nother look from me coming real soon in the upcoming days. Also, you guys know from my announcement, which I'll put up here and in the description box below and on the end screen, that there are 22 ladies in the sewing community, so you don't want to miss what's going on the entire month of June for Hot Girl Summer. All right, well, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. Until next time, keep sewing.